We did it, yay! I feel so bad about this. It takes a bit of recovery, kind of making it worse at this point. Apparently, the ghost is on fire. Nothing is official. You are literally crushing on a dead person, and I want it to make sense, but it never will. Hi guys, welcome back to another Nerd Rants video. We changed scenery. I got up onto my couch and then was doing something else and realized I need to record this, and I didn't feel like going back down to the basement. So here we are. It works. I figured we're on the phone anyway. Just, it means I can do it wherever I want. Anyway, we're gonna talk about Ghostbusters Frozen Empire. For those of you who didn't know, yes, I am in the Ghost, but I do like Ghostbusters. It's a cool franchise of movies, and I like it. Anyway, we're gonna I'll try to do a little bit of spoiler free since it's a new movie, and then let you know when I get into more of the spoiler stuff. We're just gonna say right out of the gate, Ghostbusters Afterlife was better by far. That one was like peak. It was so good. It was on par with the originals. It was fantastic. This one, it was still decent, and I still enjoyed it, and it was still a fun watch. I just had one or two bigger issues with it, which one of them isn't exactly a spoiler, so we can talk about that one before I get into my rant about the second one, because that was probably my bigger issue. But one of them was kind of the pacing of it. It felt like there was a lot of buildup happening, and they were leaning into this in all of the, leading into the buildup and leading into saying, here's this huge threat, laying the groundwork for this really huge threat, and then the final battle went fairly quickly. So it kind of felt very anticlimactic. We have all of this buildup for it, and we're having all of this trying to build up the tension and show this is a very powerful enemy, and this is a world-ending event that is going to happen, and we need to do everything we can to stop this thing from escaping. And then when it does, as you know, obviously it's gonna do, the final battle seems to go fairly quickly. I think it's the last 10 to 15 minutes of the movie. Well, minus the little, epilogue scenes, basically. But yeah, like that, the battle, I think, lasts about maybe 10 to 15 minutes. 20 at the most. It's a very, probably not 20, probably 15 at the most. It's a 10 to 15 minute battle. And this is, I think for sure, a 2-hour movie. Maybe I think it's about a 2-hour movie. And so you spend, like the 5 minutes or whatever at the end where you have the little epilogue, and then you have 15 minutes of battle. That's 20 minutes, which leaves an hour and 40 minutes that you're kind of just building things up and trying to go, this is a really big bad, this is a very serious threat, and then 15-minute battle, and then it's fine and it's over, and we did it, yay. So yeah, it was a very anticlimactic ending, and I feel like I wouldn't even have cared if they had made the movie a little longer to make the battle go a little bit longer, because like the buildup and stuff was fine. They just beat the enemy too fast. They beat the enemy too fast, which was sad, because I personally felt like all this buildup and having the fear and doing all the things, I won't spoil it yet, even from within its prison, was very cool. They could have maybe done a little less of the buildup. There was definitely some of you're kind of just showing us the same thing over again. And maybe they could have used some of that time to add more to the battle. But yeah, I feel like the battle probably should have been a bit longer, like 10 minutes longer, maybe. Have them nearly lose, have them try and figure out how to do this rather than kind of, oh, here's a threat, some of them are almost losing, and then we have this character figures it out right away. And so like the first thing they try, basically, pretty much the first thing they try works. Yeah, so that was my biggest issue with the ending, at least. I probably disliked the other issue I had more, just because it made less sense. But yeah, the pacing could have used some work. We needed more of a final battle than what we got. Otherwise, it was cool. We had some callbacks to the originals because they're back in New York in the old firehouse, and they're being funded by, I'm blanking on the black guy's name from the originals, which is awful. I'm blanking on his name, but he's funding them, and they have like this one's not exactly a spoiler, or at least not a plot important spoiler, so sorry, but we're gonna spoil this little one first. He establishes basically a ghost research facility. It's like, now that we know how to capture them, now we can study them and, learn things that would help us do our job better. Yeah, and that's a very cool concept, and I love that part. And so seeing how that worked and what they did there was very cool, and that's why I was okay with some of the build-up stuff. And yeah, that part was cool. And we got, oh gosh, the green ghost from the first one that eats things. I'm blanking, and I feel so bad about this. Like, I should know what his name is. It's on the tip of my tongue, but I cannot remember. So sorry, Ghostbusters fans, feel free to comment his name below, because I'm dumb and my brain's not doing its job right now. This is what I get for working with children, because after I spend 8 hours with children, my brain's in the toilet for a little while. Yeah, it takes a bit of recovery. Anyway, yeah, them being in the firehouse and having some of the older ghosts from the original show up was really fun. And I do like the family dynamic. I love that Paul Rudd's character is very awkward about like what his place is, because they're all living in the firehouse, obviously, and Paul and Phoebe and Trevor's mom are dating, but they're not married, and so he's very unclear about his position. So his awkwardness is very fun. And then gets to the point where it's like, no, I can be stern with these kids. Sometimes they need a heavier hand. And then finally having that moment where he kind of lashes out at Phoebe for doing something dumb. And yeah. So his awkwardness is very fun. I like the dynamic of that. I feel it's a very believable situation where he's like, I don't actually know what I am to you. There's a lot of moments where he's like, and I'm your... doesn't know how to fill in the blank. So yeah, that was fun. Phoebe's character tanks a little bit in this one because of my other issue with it, which we'll talk about when I get into spoilers. We'll try and do a little bit more spoiler-free stuff here. But yeah, her character gets a little bit of a downgrade in this one, in my opinion, like personality-wise. But yeah, we get... like pretty much all of the original Ghostbusters back again, since, they're in New York. They play a little bit of a bigger role than in Afterlife, especially Ray. He's kind of integral to the plot line. Their secretary, Melnitz, is her last name. Their secretary shows up again for a little bit, kind of acting as the in-between for their family, and again, I feel bad for forgetting the black guy's name. But yeah, kind of acts as an in-between, and so that's kind of fun. yeah, a lot of the callbacks are good, and I feel like they use the nostalgia well, and it's not like they're hanging on that to make the movie good, so that's good, because there are projects that do that. And I'm just like, no, you're kind of making it worse at this point. But yeah, I think that's kind of the reach of the spoiler-free stuff. So now we'll be getting into the spoiler stuff. So if you haven't watched it yet, leave, watch it, and come back if you have any interest. If you don't give a crap, be prepared. We're going to be ranting because I have one big issue. We'll try and save it for the end. Okay. Spoiler time. Now I gotta think of the things besides the bigger issue that I have, because I want to do that one at the end because I know I'm going to get into a rant about it. So I want to get the other stuff out of the way. The conversion, how they basically depossess items. So they like rip a ghost out of whatever item it's possessing, and then it goes into another chamber and they can trap it. That's cool. I like that concept. The way it gets used in the plot is not my favorite. Ties into my issue. But the thing itself is really cool, and we're gonna get more in depth, because my favorite part, honestly, I think, of this entire movie was definitely the ghost research facility, and them, because it's in an abandoned aquarium, and they literally have like ghost-proofed enclosures that they have ghosts in to study, and the ghost looks so cool. I love the ghosts in the cages look way cooler than basically all the other ghosts that you see outside of it. No offense to the original ghosts that show back up in this one, but I don't even know how to describe it, but my favorite one oh man, I think it's the first one they show. It's this super like lanky, pale thing, and it's got big eyes and no mouth, I think, and no nose, and it's just so cool looking. I love it. We have a possessor, which is just this little red ball of light that bounces around and possesses objects, and then there's the random, like, it's just like a head with legs, and it spits acid. That one doesn't quite look as cool as the other ones we get to see. But yeah, like, the ghosts you get to see are cool, and they have the cool, like, unpossessing objects, and they're testing weapons, and the concept of the research facility is great, and I almost wish we would have gotten more of that than the other thing we got. Anyway. Yeah, I really love the research facility. It was very cool. Podcast is around yet. He's like interning with Ray in New York, and his character is always fun. Yeah, I think that's, yeah, overall, the movie was very fun to watch. We're going to get into the main issue I had with it, because that's what I have to rant about. Overall, it was a decent movie, and I enjoyed it for the most part. There were just certain scenes where this issue arose, and it was less enjoyable for me. Anyway, we have probably the flattest character that they have ever introduced in almost any franchise. Like, it's probably not the flattest character ever. She does have some sort of backstory, but it's very vague. Her motivations are not vague, but you know, her character's not developed enough for them to have much strength. And yeah, her whole character just doesn't make any sense. So, Phoebe, being moody teenager, gets sidelined because you have a miner hanging out the side of a vehicle chasing ghosts. Like, yes, the mayor's the bad guy, but he's also making some, he's also like, he's making sense sometimes. Like, don't have Phoebe be the one going out of the vehicle in the gunner seat. Just saying. She's like 15. Anyway, she's mad. She runs off to play chess by herself in the park because she's kind of a weird girl, which is great. We love weird girls. We love weird, socially awkward girls. Her character was very fun in the first movie. She sits down, she starts setting up the pieces, and I immediately go, there's gonna be a ghost showing up, isn't there? It's gonna play chess with her. Yep, sure enough, ghost shows up. They have a conversation. Ghost is confused because Phoebe doesn't freak out because she's used to seeing ghosts. Apparently, the ghost is on fire. Like, she shows up and apparently she's on fire. I did not notice that. I didn't know they were flames until Phoebe said something. I was like, really? Those are flames. Okay, I guess they look like flames. She's also not burnt at all. Her ghost form's not burnt at all. And the reason she gives is, I died before I burned up. I'm like, no, that's not possible. That's not how fire works. Fire is kind of a slow, painful death, and you would definitely lose. You would definitely have severe burns. Because you die because the fire burns you, not because of any other reason. Like, the fire burns you, and because of that and the damage the burns do, you die. Sometimes it's inhaling smoke, sometimes it's heat. But, like, because her backstory is she accidentally started the fire and it killed her family, which means it originated next to her, probably, because it involved a match, which means it originated next to her, which means she would be unrecognizable as a person. But no, she's perfectly fine. She just has flames on her. That's not how it works. Every other ghost we see in the entire franchise, you guys either has some sort of monstrous form, or you like see how they died, because you can tell based on their ghostly form. Neither of those. I couldn't even tell it was flames. Anyway, she shows up. I will also say, because of like how they did it with the blue and whatever else, I cannot tell you what actress it was, and I have no idea if I could point her out in a lineup. I could not, for the life of me, see her face. I could not see and distinguish the details of her face. So I have no clue who this person was, and I probably couldn't show her to you if you gave me a line of potential pictures. Yeah. So yeah, it's like that visually, like, what the heck is happening? Like, this doesn't make any sense. And then they have one conversation. Cool. In that conversation, I immediately went, they are going to make this person, I cannot even remember her name right now. Oh, it's Melody. I remember now, it's Melody. Anyway, they had one conversation, I went, oh crap, they're making Melody Phoebe's love interest, aren't they? Nothing is official. They do not officially make her a love interest, but they imply it very heavily throughout this movie. Because Phoebe gets more awkward than usual around this ghost. And she goes into, like, the ghost, the spirit possession, whatever, the machine that rips spirits out of possessed objects. She goes into that to separate her ghost from her body to be on the same dimensional plane as Melody. Yeah. Anyway, the entire time, every time they were on screen together, my brain went, why? Why the frick? You could have played this several different ways. You chose to do it that way, and it makes no sense. They had one conversation, and all of a sudden, she's crushing on her. I'm just like, she's a ghost. You are literally crushing on a dead person who is an indeterminate number of years old. She is not dressed like she is ancient, but, of course, I also can't really see her body all that well. I could not tell you what her outfit was. But also, she never like actually says how long ago she died. She doesn't really necessarily imply any general idea of how long it's been. She just said that was a long time ago, once. And so I have no idea. Decades maybe? Not centuries, but decades maybe? Yeah. So, yeah, Phoebe in one conversation, one like 2-minute conversation, allegedly falls for a ghost of a ghost of a dead girl who somehow died in a fire she started with a match without melting her face off, like decades ago. How does this make any sense? It makes me mad because it makes no sense, and I want it to make sense, but it never will. So yeah, and it's literally the only reason she is around, is to get Phoebe to use the machine to separate her spirit from her body so that, I cannot remember the big bad's name, so that Ice Demon Man can control her to make her say the chant to free him, because there's a chant that opens the prison. In order to open the prison, a living person has to say the chant, and then, but he can only control ghosts. So, in order to, when Phoebe separates her spirit, he controls Phoebe's spirit, and that makes her body, her unconscious body, say the chant, which frees him. I almost would have preferred if they had just made the possessor capable of possessing people, not just objects, and then it had possessed someone to say the chant. And then Melody's character would not have been necessary, and things would have made a whole lot more sense. Petition. Anybody else in the comments agree? They should have just used the possessor in order to make someone say the chant. Because the possessor was there when they played the chant. It was there. It heard it. So whether they... Or it could just make the... I don't know if it would need to know the chant or not to make a host body say it. But anyway, possess someone who heard the chant to go to the research facility, because most of the people who heard the chant have access to the research facility, and then say the chant and let him out. It'd be way simpler. We wouldn't need a weird ghost love interest girl, and it would just make 100 times more sense. Yeah, that's how it should have been. That's how it should have happened. Melody shouldn't have existed. Melody is the biggest issue I had with this entire movie. She shouldn't have been a thing. And even if they did use her character, because her sole purpose was to betray Phoebe, honestly. So even if they had used her character, use it as a friendship, because that would make more sense, and then you build up the relationship, and we have her go, cool, and Phoebe's very interested in ghosts. We imply throughout this entire movie that Phoebe's very interested in, like, what would it be like to be a ghost? Like, their first conversation consists of her asking about what being a ghost is like. And you could even have used that where she befriends this ghost to learn about what being a ghost is like, and then does the whole separating her spirit from her body thing as an experiment, and Melody's, still working for Iceman, and they do that, and then he can still do his control her body through her spirit thing, which makes less sense than just possessing a living being to do that, because he can control the possessor anyway. But if they were set on Phoebe separating her spirit from her body, they could have done it that way. So yeah, that's where I'm at right now with that. The petition to have done it pretty much any other way, because it just would have made more sense. Use the possessor, or turn the whole separating Phoebe's spirit from her body thing into her doing an experiment, because that makes more sense for her as this science logic girl to go, ooh, I befriended a ghost. I'm very interested in what being a ghost is like. I'm going to separate my spirit from my body as an experiment to figure out what it's like. Over, I have a crush on this ghost that I met and talked to for 2 minutes. Which revision do you prefer? Feel free to comment that down below, because I don't know. I'm leaning towards the Possessor, because that just makes sense, and we wouldn't have had to have Melody's character at all, because Melody's character was a cardboard cutout. Anyway, this is the main thing I had to talk about. That was the main thing. The ice looked really cool. It was jutting out of everything. That was very fun. The Possessor was great. I loved the Possessor. And considering how much they leaned into its use in the plot, them just using it to possess someone who had heard the chants would make a whole lot of sense anyway. But they limited it to only objects, so that it couldn't do that, so that Melody would serve a purpose. Anyway, I also realized as the attack began and all of the ice started jutting out of everything, that it could have been a very, very dark movie. Like, there could have been so many people getting impaled on ice. But there weren't. The darkest thing we get is a guy gets frozen and then off screen gets shattered by a spike of ice. And so then you just see like little sort of colored chunks of ice on the floor. That's the darkest thing we get, which is dark. The implication is dark, and I mean, they can't really show you shattering a man on screen. But that's the only really dark thing that happens. Yeah. Also, the Indian dude from Eternals, I don't know the actor's name. If you know, you can comment that down below too. But he played a fairly annoying comedy character too. Like, the character could have been, like, the character was important to the plot, but he could have been played by like literally anyone else, and it probably would have been better. So yeah, those are my thoughts on Frozen Empire. Overall, it was a fun watch and it was good, and I enjoyed it. But the pacing was a little weird. They could have, you know, just lengthened the final battle a little bit so that it doesn't seem like they defeated him so easily after all the buildup. Melody didn't need to exist, and the Fire Master could have been played by quite literally anyone else. Just about. There are definitely people below this dude as far as my preference on actors, but he could have been played by almost anyone else. Yeah. Those are my thoughts. Drop yours in the comments. I put any recommendations, suggestions, whatever that you might have as well. I post videos out on this channel every Wednesday and Saturday, and on the audiobook channel on Thursdays. I'll see you next time.